Okay, thank you, Josh, for taking time to making this small interview. Would you make a short presentation of yourself and how you connect to personalism?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a philosopher at St. Louis University in the States. Um, I come to personalism through a couple of early Catholic philosophers, Dietrich von Hildebrand and Edith Stein. I suppose my interest in personalism is the conviction that if we get persons wrong, then we have morally negative consequences for how we treat each other. So it's crucial that we understand the dignity and value of the person. And I think the personalist conviction is that the value of each person is immeasurable, it's infinite. Yeah.
Thank you. Um, and where do you see the actuality of Levinas in our society today?
Yeah, so maybe we could say a little bit about Levinas.
Yeah.
So Levinas was a Jewish philosopher who uh, experienced a concentration camp and the evils done in the Second World War. And he had this question about how it's possible uh, to treat a person in such a diminished way as an object for discarding or throwing away. And so Levinas is interested to capture this kind of attitude or gaze, which which closes us off to the dignity of the other, the person that I'm facing. And he thinks that this attitude is what he would call a totality. So, a totalizing attitude puts a person in a box, you might say. So, it puts a person into a concept or an idea that I have that limits them to what I think and what I want, right? So, the other just becomes, for me, a projection of my thinking about them. So, you might think about how if I've got a vague impression of somebody that I've just met, and I get a sense for what I think their personality is, right? Then I label them according to that personality. I label that guy the athlete or something, right? When I do that, I've created a totality, a boundary that for me helps me to basically refer to that person or think about that person, but I really don't know them at all, right? Have a very limited conception of the other. Levinas wants to contrast this with our first experience of a person, which is when we're born. We experience the face of our mother or a parent, and even before we can have concepts of things and objects, we first have the experience of a someone, not a something. Someone who faces us as other than us, not reducible to our concepts or our judgments, and also someone who actually has to reveal myself to myself. I don't even think of myself as a person, really, until I've already, uh, Levinas calls this being called into question by the face of my mother or the face of the other. Yeah, the way that Levinas wants to unpack this for us in society would be something like, you know, um, if you're focused on your goals and your projects and you're moving through the world to accomplish something, you don't yet have the space to be met to encounter another person. Because when we encounter somebody else, our goals are interrupted. We now have to be receptive to someone other than us with their own desires and their own subjectivity. And that kind of receptivity calls us to love that person and to set aside my ambitions and my goals. So Levinas refers to this as the interruption of the other. And he thinks that we should be thinking of the other as, instead of a totality, an infinity, something that transcends all of our boxes that we put people into, right? So this interruption for Levinas, he thinks occurs in a special way in the face of the other. So I know you and I distinguish you from somebody else by your face. And our face communicates especially through our eyes, the significance of the person. So, Levinas draws our attention to the oculus hollow of the eye, right? Because we can't actually see something visible. It's an abyss, right? It's a darkness, which reminds us that we're facing someone who isn't reducible to our images and our concepts of them, our ideas about them, but it's someone who has their own subjectivity that I don't have privileged access to, right? So I'm looking at someone that has an infinite amount of depth. I'll never fully grasp them. Yeah, so that's a little bit about his approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to read more about Levinas, would you recommend a book?
Yeah, so his primary work, in English, Totality and Infinity, or Totalité et Infini, is where he's going to unpack um, his phenomenology, his account of the experience of the other, of otherness. That would be probably where I would start. I mean, it's a it's a difficult read, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think there something in our society today that make Levinas actual? A call for
Yeah,
his
I mean, I
thoughts,
guess I want to say there's something lacking in our society today, in terms of this reverence for the other. I think Levinas would see our I think Levinas would see our kind of capitulation to the mediation of technology as a failure to recognize the kind of sacred or important value of the face-to-face encounter, where I have a real experience of personhood, and we've got our FaceTime and our Zoom and these are approximations of the face, but they're not the full expression of the face, which we only get in person. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course.